right, this is Chen here, and you're in for another installment of the Engagement Show featuring my one and only great friend from Canada, Roger Haskett. Roger, what is going on?
Oh, John, I'm so glad to see you. You know, it's so funny. I was going to say that at the beginning of our engagement show, we should catch up because for people who don't know what's going on, we literally sign on a couple minutes ago and go, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. Let's do it. And so I didn't even have a chance to say to you, hey, how's the last month gone? So how's the last month gone?
We'll talk about engagement. One of the coolest things that I did was I actually worked with an event planner here, and it was like a super secret event. It turned out to be my girlfriend's 25th anniversary party. And the highlight of the piece here, Roger, was that they have surprise acts, and one of the surprise acts was Katy Perry in a private concert in Seattle, and we were a front row center for it. Unbelievable. All I can tell you about, Roger, you want to talk about engagement? When Katy Perry looks at you, she looks into your soul, Roger.
Whoa. Okay. So, that's funny because we're going to talk about that later in terms of top mistakes. Because one of the mistakes we're going to talk about is doing what's expected and how engagement. So I have a long, I should pull it up. Maybe I'll find it in a moment, where I say, some of the ways of creating engagement is SHEMPS, where I have like SS, CC, H, EEEMMPPS, because there are all these different ways. And the S at the end is surprise. Because the moment you put surprise into the room, engagement increases. My top story for that is very similar to yours. I think it was ILEA a couple of years ago, or pre-COVID, they it was at Austin, and they had a surprise speaker show up after lunch, at the part where everyone is at the lowest energy as they're digesting food. And the person, it was a local, they said, we're going to have a local Austin person come in and tell you about where you should go. And on stage walked Matthew McConaughey. And the room went wild. Wow. When I brought it up in one of my sessions, a woman who had been there was at the very back of the room, and she fell off her chair because when she heard Matthew McConaughey and remembered, it excited her body so much that she literally fell into the aisle, because surprise is a massively awesome way of creating engagement.
Well, and that's where we're here. Roger and I decided we're talking today about top engagement mistakes, right? And how you can fix them. And number one is doing the expected, right? The doing the expected is to have your normal keynote speaker, said CEO or executive walk out. And so, right, this is like where the Katy Perry and having Matthew McConaughey, this is where the star power really comes in, because nobody was expecting it. It's like a double star power on top of that. Surprise and delight. Surprise and delight is one of my friend's favorite game mechanic. And so you should think about surprise and delight to fix your engagement issues.
So absolutely. So for me, what I do in almost all of my sessions, all my sessions as a keynoter and as an MC, is early on, right away, I throw expectations out the window and I play games. Like like a game that's focused and I give them like a sheet that they all have to lean in and work on together. And the first page of the sheet is like fun photos of people that they have to identify from, their eyes are blacked out or whatever. And it's amazing because people are sitting, they're waiting, they're like on their phones. Maybe they're talking to their neighbor, most likely not. And they're like going, okay, I've got an hour. This guy, Roger Haskett, is going to be doing a talk on engagement, whatever, let's see what that is. And all of a sudden in the first 5 minutes, not only do I get them playing a game with each other, but I ask them all these questions and I get them to shout things out. And I've had people write in as comments, within the first 5 seconds, I knew that this was going to be something special, because right away, our expectations have been subverted. And instead of the norm, you have a change and a surprise, and that creates participation. And participation is the bedrock of engagement.
I think the other part that you just said there, right? The first 5 seconds, right? That's one of my core tenets, is like the first 5 meetings dictates, right, the rest of the meeting. That's why they're the most important. So doing something in those first 5 seconds, I think, is so key and so important. I think the other part that's here, Roger, is engagement makes sense when you connect with the audience. And so what I mean by that is that in a recent one, we did a trivia contest, but instead of doing normal trivia, we did a trivia contest that used all the facts about their employees. And one of the cool parts was it is that one of the employees was a drummer for an AC/DC tribute,
And
right? And so not only that, we customized that. Not only after we figured out who it was, we found a clip of him playing, right, one of the classic drum solos from AC/DC that was on video and put it inside of the game. So
yeah.
those are the kind of things that you should think about. If you want engagement, right, engage somebody in that audience, and the rest of the people will look around going, "Holy cow, you paid total attention to somebody who is here in this audience."
Okay, so that makes me think of just before, like in 2019, I did an event for a full day for Microsoft, and it was for one of their leadership teams. And I was early on in, like, the first session, I was doing my pressure cooker confidence, and I'm talking, and there's this guy over off to the side, and he was doing something. He said something or he did something, and I totally focused on him, and I was like, hey, and I started to like interact with him and sort of tease him a little on what he was doing, like in a gentle, fun way. And the room went crazy because I called him out for something, and it was clearly something that he normally does. And everyone went crazy. And at the end of the day, which was a super successful day, the organizer came up to me, the person who had hired me, and came up and said, Roger, one of the best things you did today was when, and repeated what had happened with that person. And he said, the moment you did that, everyone in the room was in your pocket, because they realized that, first of all, you were improvising. Like, this wasn't a set standard, like it was full of real life and surprises. And secondly, it was all about the audience even if it wasn't about the talk, it was all about the audience for that like minute and a half. And it made everyone in the audience sit up and be like, oh, that could happen to me. And or like, I got to laugh about what's happening to a friend of mine, a person that I work with. So these are magical. Yeah.
So speaking of not magical, right, we're going to give a shout out, though. We're going to engage one of our very good friends who posted, I thought, one of the funniest photos of the year. This shout out goes out to Julius Solaris, who's in the meetings industry, and he posted this.
Yeah.
Adding a poll to your event doesn't make it engaging, right? And so the key here for this is that in technology, right, while I'm the first fan of technology to use technology for engagement, right, you can't crutch on one piece of technology and think that a 60-minute keynote is going to be engaging, right, Roger?
Okay, so I have had this conversation with so many clients where, if I'm the MC for a full day conference, and they go, okay, so the person's going to be doing an hour talk, and they've got 3 polls, so we're covered in terms of engagement. And I'm like, whoa. That is not, that's like, yes, that's helping engagement. That does help engagement. But to think that conducting a poll or a couple polls is the same as active participation for your hour is like so misleading, and it's sort of damaging, because people right, like literally think, oh, I check off engagement because I did a poll. And it's like, no, that's not checking off engagement.
Yes, you need a combination of different things, and you have to remember we're humans. Right? Humans need engagement, right? A poll is one form, but is not the complete package of true engagement. I think one of the, I'm going to give my shout out to my other good friend, right? Tom Singer. Tom Singer, one of the greater closers, one of his things to do, he specializes in the closing keynote because he attends the whole conference, and he writes the closing keynote while he's attending the conference, right? He also does things like he'll be in the bar with somebody, let's say the Belgians, and just say, the Belgians give him a word like waffle. And he's got to use waffle at least once in the closing keynote. So the Belgians are now all completely, right, engaged with him because they want to figure out how is he going to inject waffle into his closing keynote. So those are some of the things that I think are so important for engagement, is when you create a touch point, right? A human touch point.
So I believe, so to me, the definition of engagement, like, as I said before, the bedrock of it is active participation. And so you have to be thinking about, the answer to believing that a poll is engagement is to say, actually, what you want is active participation throughout. This leads to the next point, that engagement is not saying I'm going to do a 45-minute talk and then leave 15 minutes for Q&A. And then like you're covered. Again, you go check mark, I've done engagement because I left time for Q&A. That is not like, that is engagement at some point in it, but you need to be thinking about active participation all the way through it. So when I structure, and I'm sure, John, you're the same, when I structure my talks, I literally take out content and put in places for active participation. And I go, I know I'm not going to cover as much as I want, but I will get the audience involved, not the audience, I will get the participants involved. So what I am talking about lands deeper in their body because they're engaged all the way through the process.
In my talks, especially on virtual, where engagement is an even bigger problem, is that I allocate 50% of my time to talk with other people. In fact, I recently just did this. Yesterday, we had a 250 person webinar, right? And you know, I'm not a fan of webinar, right? Because I can't see anybody, I can't talk to anybody. But we promoted like a dozen people, Roger, and that we had talked to them. And I gave a whole talk about how to create more engagement with no additional technology. Inside of that talk, and people were chatting like mad, going, most engaging speaker we've had in 2 years, right? Love the conversational aspect of this, because half of the time I wasn't talking, they were talking. It was so great. So I do want to close with one story here. I'm going to give a story, Roger, and I'm sure it's going to spark one with you. So I'm going to finish with this Katy Perry story, because talk about engagement. I just want to give shout out and props to Katy Perry, because while I'm not the biggest Katy Perry fan you ever knew, you know, when she came to this part, she really customized this show she did that night for the client. And one of them I thought that was really important is that she saw somebody mouthing all the words to her song. She jumped off of stage. And, you know, there's metal, you know, barriers, right? That like, you know, for concerts to protect the rush. She sat on that barrier and started singing, right? I Kissed a Girl, right? And I liked it to this person who knew all her lyrics. And it like blew away this person, like just made her day that Katy Perry got off stage and like they got to sing this song together. But even more important to that, one of the parts, they had a patient for this company creates drugs. And this drug cured one of the patients of a cancer years ago, and she made sure to do a shout out to the two of them inside of that. So these small things that she did were really big. It just said she did her homework, and she found a way to connect to this audience, right? That was very specific for that moment. And I think those are the key parts to engagement. What about you, Roger?
Well, just to talk about that for a second, one of the great things about music is that it creates active participation all the time. You're dancing along, you're singing along, you're mouthing the words along. Those are all ways that a performer in front of 10,000 or 50,000 people actually creates active participation all the way through the event, right? So music is great for that because it allows that. Okay, so one of the tricks I'm going to say, not so much a story, I'm going to this is what I use all the way through my sessions, is whenever I want to have the participants involved, I say, okay, everyone stand up. I almost always get people to get up and move. And I say, find the person closest to you that you know the least. So if there's a stranger near you, go to them. And then talk for 2 minutes, 1 minute each, about what it is that you want to take home from the last part of what we just talked about. And it's so amazing because it starts always slow. What happens is that people stand up and they'll look around and they're finding someone they don't know, so it's a little awkward, but everyone's doing it. So even introverts have a sort of protective like a protective environment around them. Right. And what happens is the noise level just keeps arising. And then when I want to get them to pay back attention to me again, I do the like a kindergarten thing. I go like, if you can hear this, clap once. If you can hear this, clap twice. And the more engaged the audience, the longer I go. I've never gone past 5.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is in those moments, I see people, they're talking to a stranger, and I start asking for their attention, and they look at me like I'm annoying them, right? They look at me like they're like, who are you to interrupt me? I'm actively participating with this person, sharing my thoughts with them. And you want me to pay attention to you now? Forget it, buddy. And at the end of that, I always say, you guys made me work harder to get your attention, and it made me love you the most. Because if you don't want to listen to me in those moments, it's because you're full of power. And what we want are participants full of power, full of engagement power, because it's a superpower.
All right. Well, there you go. The top engagement mistakes and how to fix them from one Roger Haskett and John Chen. If you have a meeting that is boring, that is not engaging, do yourself a favor and call one of us two or both of us, because we will both help you. Right, Roger?
Oh, totally. We love it. I love it, love it, love it. Yeah, John, so nice to see you again. So nice to see, or not see, so nice to be seen by people out in internet land. And I look forward to next month.
Every month here on The Engagement Show. I'm John Chen, and that has been Roger Haskett. We hope that you enjoyed this installment of The Engagement Show. We'll see you next time.